Now, I think. All right. So, welcome to today's Magical Tea Talks and coffee too. I'm Cindy Hernandez. I'm a licensed massage therapist, NLP practitioner, and and I'm a coach. So, I'm gonna let Val introduce herself too.
Hi, my name's Valerie McLaughlin. I'm an intuitive heart healer, energy artist, and spiritual guide. And I help people connect to their heart centers so they connect to their spirit and live a life guided, full of love and joy. I even got my mug today. It says connecting your heart and spirit.
I got a new mug. So for my new podcast that'll be coming out, Millionaire Migrant Magic.
Nice. I like that one.
Yeah.
What necklace, what crystal are you wearing?
Amethyst.
Ooh, nice. It reminds me of one that my friend Christina had given me. But it was kyanite, but it looks like you had like a little black tourmaline or something in there too, which was on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great topic we have for today.
Yeah.
And about attachments.
Yeah. This is really, really, really good. Do you want to get started or should I?
Yeah. Well, when we talk about attachments, we have attachments to so many different things. Think about it like when you were a kid and you had like maybe a Barbie doll. For me, it was Garfield's. And if somebody like tore the tag off or ripped it or something, you were like, oh my God, this is ruined. And like, I can't go on because my Garfield is ruined. This is so we are like as a kid. I'm sure you like see this with your kids now too.
Yeah.
And we get attached to these things. And it's just an example of like where in our whole life we get attached to different things. And it's like the worst thing in the world. And sometimes some people don't get over even that like childhood thing, like when your brother ripped off the arm to your Barbie. Well, I never had Barbies, but my brother was actually not that mean. I'd say if anybody did, it was probably my uncles because they like to do those things. But you remember, it's like, oh my God, it's like it was like the most traumatic, and it becomes a trauma in your life, even as you go older. And so later on in life, when something happens and maybe you lose a person and either they pass away or in a relationship, it brings up that trauma from when you lost your Barbie doll because your brother ripped off the arm.
Yeah. There's so much that we get attached to too, and this goes beyond like just the physical things too. It's like our mental state and like what we think. We are attached in some form to them. We are attached to the feeling of what it brings us, and even if we don't quote unquote want it, we're still attached to it because we're so used to it. We're so used to continuing that path, continuing that thought, that although it served us at one point, it's not going to serve you in the future, or it's not going to serve you in the way that you want to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's to like words too, like even society. I was talking to somebody and they're like, well, starving artist, or I'm like, I hate that term. And she was like, well, it's true. And I'm like, in my reality, it's not true. But like, these are attachment that like the society is put on you. Like oh, musicians never make money unless you're like, get your big shot. So don't bother doing that, or don't bother dancing because you're never going to make it. I mean, these are attachments to words and feelings that are put on you.
Yeah. And especially growing up like in a Hispanic household and stuff, like even like the cultural things, it's like you growing up here, they put like all of this almost negative, it's not really negative, but it's like however you look at it is how you look at it. But they put these things on you where it's like you can only be successful if you are blank and blank and then fill in the blank, right? And
Mhm.
then you're attached to that because you now start believing that. And then you are like, yes, I can only achieve that through this.
Mhm. Is it like that with like certain like ceremonies, like certain things that you've like your parents brought over with them, and then they try to teach you, and now you're like, well, I don't want to do it this way. I want to do it my way. But it's like, oh no, these are our traditions. These are the way it has to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like most of our like not most of our like grandparents and stuff like that, they have a way of doing things. They have, so when you want to break free from that, it's like they're so attached to doing it that way. It's like, how can I convince them that we can do it differently without them feeling like that's wrong or that shouldn't be that way?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely engraved like from ancestors too. It's like it's just carried on, and like that is the tradition. That is what we do.
Yeah, I find it in ceremonies and like rituals with in spiritual as well. And I was having a dinner with a friend of mine. It was really amazing. We got into really good conversations, and I had said something, and I said, "Well, why don't you just talk to the spirits and find out what they want?" And somebody goes, they were like, well, that's what we were doing, but somebody said, no, they're not supposed to be here, you have to ask them. And I'm like, why can't you just have a conversation? Maybe they're looking for something that you can, you know, talk to them. And we even in the spiritual, it's like we even get into these things where it has to be this way, but when you want to expand, you
Yeah,
can't do this.
yeah,
So like wherever it is you want to expand your business, you can't hold on to something so tight and have such a strong attachment to it that
mhm,
you're not allowing yourself to grow.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you brought that up because I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and it was about the spiritual and like how our ancestors sometimes they pull us back because they want us to do a certain thing, but in reality, if we just call in like love and say, I'm calling in all of my ancestors that are full of love and bring in that loving energy, then I can move forward towards a different direction and I don't have to pull this way. But you have to bring in those ancestors because if not, then it's like this tug of war pretty much.
Yeah. I and this is your emotions, this is your physical worlds, these are certain practices and certain things that you do. You get attached to this. Yeah, somebody said, oh, I thought you were moving to California. I said, well, that's, and I said, and they're like, why doesn't it happen? I was like, because I have no attachments to it. So when it happens, when and if it happens, it's meant to happen, and I'll be there. And it's just living that life just so that you have all your opportunities. If I try to force myself to get there, maybe I miss out on something that I'm supposed to be doing here,
Yeah.
or I'm so focused on there and I can't be focused on what I need to be doing or what I really want to be doing, which is this, spreading love and holding space for people and bringing things forward. Because letting go of the attachment is one of the ways that you can become enlightened and move out of this third dimension and move up into the fifth and sixth and seventh. And you know, there's really endless possibilities for us to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And now that you're talking, now that you said something about like the physical and everything, I'm like there's so many things that we get attached to. Even our muscles get attached to certain things. So that's why we have these knots that don't go away so easily. It's because they're already attached to another muscle that they don't want to let go. And they're like, no, leave me here. So
Yeah.
that's what happens. And like we get attached to so many things. And when we're attached, we're not allowing things to flow. We're not allowing things to just happen naturally and just release. And yes, they serve us for a certain time, but it's about knowing when to let go too.
Yeah. And letting go. And I was reading part of this book to you earlier, and I loved what it said. It said, letting go is not just about getting rid of something. So it's not like saying, oh, I'm done with this mug, I'm going to throw it away. It's about changing your relationship with it.
Yeah.
Because if you throw it away and you haven't changed your relationship, you hadn't thanked it, you haven't this, you still have this attachment, you still have this cord to it, and you're still holding on to it. And it might not be in your physical, but they're like, you might one day, I'm like, oh, what did I ever do with that mug? I really like that mug. Why can I? And you just bring up all these, and it brings up everything. So it's about also changing. It's about changing the relationship and shifting that energy.
Yeah. And so I'm just thinking, like, imagine if you were talking to your mom and you were like, no, I'm just gonna throw her away because like you can't do that. You're still attached to her. And like that happens so much, like we bump heads or we just don't see eye to eye. And then it's like, okay, well, how can we, shift the energy towards this so that we're not always like this, so that we can get along and so that I don't have to throw you in the trash.
Yeah, that's true. We do it like, oh, I'm just gonna walk away from this relationship with this person. But if you don't actually change that relationship you have with that person, you still hold on to everything. You're still
Yeah.
attached to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're attached to the hurt too. You're attached to, okay, so if we're looking at like past relationships, like the ones that, served us for a little bit just to make us realize that we wanted something different, those relationships, we attach to the feeling of, that person hurt me. So then we bring that on to our next relationship, expecting that person to hurt us as well, because we're still attached to that hurt.
Oh my God, that is so true.
Yeah.
And sometimes not even realizing that you're actually doing it.
Yeah, a lot of these things are subconscious though. We don't realize it until we start, seeing things in a different perspective. Yeah.
That came up to me. I it might have been, it was when I had a really complicated migraine, and my complicated migraines, just my body reacts really differently before the headaches come on. And so my sister did some work on me, and she said, um, I feel like what it's coming up to me is that you have a fear. You have a fear in that if you step forward into this relationship, that you're going to get hurt again. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to, because I'm not feeling that. And then I go see Dr. Teresa, who is amazing network chiropractor, and she says the similar thing to me. And she's like, it's not in your, I said to her, I said, it's not in my mental clarity. It's like not in my mental field. I'm not saying it over and over. It's not like a repeating record, but it's still in my cellular memory,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my emotional memory. So even though it's not a thought in my head, and this was like a big realization, like it's not a thought in my head, it's not something that I keep going over and over again. It's still not cleared out of my energetic field, and it's still something I have to work on to release, because I believe getting a relationship is the most amazing thing. Love is the most amazing thing I want in my life. But there's still this part that has had people that have walked out of my life, and it's been like really like that. Like it's 1 minute they're here, the next day they just left. And there's like, um, and it has hurt, but I remember all the love that I felt, and that's worth it. But there's still that little traces still there that have to be cleared out and let go. And it's in your physical body and your emotional body, your energetic body. It's not always your head, it's always the thoughts.
Yeah. And so I think too, like, it's not, I posted this on my news feed the other day, yesterday actually, that these things take time. It's not like a quick fix. It's not like, oh, we're going to release this and it's going to be gone forever. The thing is, once we get to the next, our next level, right? there's still a part of us that still feels that way. So we're going to see it again, but we have an opportunity to shift through it again more easily than we did the first time, because now we can catch it. And that's the thing. Like, it's not that these things aren't going to reappear ever again. They might. And it's just for us to realize that we can shift out of it. We can release it again. And we probably will have to. But there's always those pieces
Yeah.
that sometimes we're really, really attached to.
So what are some tips or techniques that you can give some people on how to release attachments?
Hmm. I would say I would technically, like, for me, like NLP is something that I use. Like, there's different techniques that I can use for that so that you can release that relationship. So like there's the shadow work, there's all of these things, but like I don't know if I could. Ho'oponoponos are one of the things that you can do to release too, actually. So Ho'oponopono prayers are just it's a forgiveness, and it's, what is it? I love you.
Please
It's,
forgive me.
please forgive me.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, thank you, and I love you.
Mm-hmm.
So you repeat those things. You can write them down in your journal, and everything that you feel like you're attached to, you can write it down. And this is literally, this can go beyond anything that you can think of. Your relationship with money, your relationship with your mother, your relationship with your husband, your relationship with your children, all of the things. You can, anything, like even the thoughts that come through your head, or even the physical pain that you have, just releasing that in
Yeah.
that way, writing it down and then just burning it, ripping it up, whatever makes you feel like, I'm not going to think of that anymore.
Yeah, it works. Ho'oponopono is great because it's forgiveness. Forgiveness is about not forgetting. It's about choosing to
Yeah.
move forward,
Yeah.
choosing happiness, choosing love. It's about shifting that energy. And the Ho'oponopono is great to help you with that because you don't necessarily even need to know everything that you have to forgive. It's putting that energy out that you're like ready to do that, and it's situations, it's timelines, it's places. You're like, you're driving, somebody gets in a car accident, it was like, well, if that tree wasn't in the middle of the street, like, maybe the tree fell with a storm or something, then, and you're blaming the tree for the accident, or you're blaming the car because it didn't brake fast enough or whatever. But we put this blame, and the ponomo forgiveness is carries we carry guilt, we carry anger, we carry sadness, we carry the fact that we're not worthy enough, if it's especially something that we're attached to all these things. And the pono is so great because it helps you just, I don't even know. And you can do it anytime.
Yeah.
I remember
Multiple
I'm
times.
driving down the car. I'm driving in the car, and then all of a sudden a song came on, and it triggered a memory in me. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I just keep repeating it as I'm driving down the car. And so anytime like something like that, it triggers a memory, and I'm not feeling love, and it feels like really this. I start doing it right away.
Yeah.
Just to
Whenever
start
you feel
doing
like
it.
that, it's
Mm-hmm.
good. Another thing that I wanted to touch up on was the forgiveness, right? So when we're forgiving, when we take the responsibility for it rather than putting it on somebody else, because when we put it on somebody else, that doesn't allow, like, we're not going to get that forgiveness. But when we put it on ourselves and we can forgive ourselves for the way that we looked at things, then that releases it. But it's not necessarily like, okay, I'm going to say, for example, like a relationship, right? So that toxic relationship, when you put it on that person, like that person never forgave me for all that they did, you can't change that person. You can't change the way that things happen. But what you can do is change yourself. So when you change that and you release that hurt in your heart by saying these ho'oponoponos, that allows you to be free. That allows you to let more love in rather than that hurt, like that guard that you're trying to put up because somebody hurt you. And there was something else that I wanted to add on that, but it'll come back.
Yeah, and what's when you're doing that is you're when you're blaming somebody else, you're putting yourself in the victim mode and you're not
Yeah.
taking ownership of yourself. But also with the forgiveness, and you say the Ho'oponopono and you work on forgiveness, you're saying it to the part of you that is in that person because we're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
So you're releasing that energy, and it does release off of that other person too. Not everything, but it does release something out of the other person. And that's what you want because you don't want it holding you back. It's about lifting and lighting your load. And if it does the other person, then that's what we're all here for. We're all here for love, right? Peace and
Yeah.
happiness, and we forget that.
Yeah. And okay, I remember now. So the forgetting part, it's not about forgetting, like you said, right? And it's true because we don't want to forget all of the things that life has taught us, even if they're quote unquote bad, even if they're not the happiest moments. But those moments are what makes us who we are. And those moments are what leads us to the path of where we want to lead. So there, I also heard in the podcast yesterday, like we don't know light until we know dark, or we don't know dark until we know light. And it's the same thing, like because when we're going into something blindly, we're hoping for something good, but something else might happen. And then so what happens is that I forgot, I lost my train of thought. I lost my train of thought. All right, scratch that.
But you know, you were onto something there because it's not about forgetting what happened too, because actually when you release that forgiveness, you now stand at a different spot. And now you can reflect on that situation, see
Yeah,
things in different point of views, and you can see the lessons and what it's actually taught you because everything is teaching you something.
yeah. And it's leading you to somewhere. Like we need that in order to help somebody else too, in order to, be these light beings so that we can all see the light. Because what happens is we often, okay, we look at it as a bad thing and then not realizing that somebody else is going through that situation and you can help them too. And by that not happening to you, maybe you wouldn't have stepped forward because that never happened to you. So you would have just stepped back and you wouldn't have been able to help so many people. That's
Yeah,
how I see it, at least. It's like by this happening to me, now I get to help so many other people.
yeah. and
Heal,
and,
heal.
and it allows you to stand stronger in your light, which is allows people to give permission to stand stronger in their light.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And we're here, we we're I don't want to get into this whole manifesting thing, but we manifestation and creating what your life is, being the magical beings we are, instantaneously being able to create something in that moment can actually happen as we begin become lighter and lighter, and
yeah,
then begin to ascend. And one of those ways to do that is to begin to release attachments,
yeah, yeah,
because if you're holding on to something, you're holding things more densely in you and you're not allowing yourself to become up lighter. And you know what, if you allow yourself to release the mug, you can recreate it as you become a lighter and lighter being and become a seventh dimensional being,
yeah,
which
yeah,
we'll stay for another chat when we start talking about that, because everyone's going, what is she talking about? But
yeah,
we can say that for another chat. But just the thought is like, you can let this go because you're going to be able to create another one.
yeah, yeah. So there was something that I was thinking about too, like in the future, I wanted to host something. And okay, if I gave you $500, right, Val,
Hmm.
and then I said, Val, that person over there needs it. Can you
Hmm.
give it to them? And you were like, no, and you attached to it. By not releasing that, I was gonna give you 10,000 for giving that person 5,000. And you didn't release it. You were attached to it. And that's what happens with people with money too. It's like we get attached to it. We're like, I can't give it because then I'm not going to get any more. Technically, that's what you're saying. I'm not going to get any more. I'm not allowing any more to flow in because I can't give it. So this was like something that I was thinking about, was like, okay, when we attach ourselves to our purse, like what if that person behind me, really needed a purse or something? Or like something like, I don't know, food.
Mhm.
Okay. And if I didn't give it to that person, I wouldn't allow us, we can all be abundant. Like I can give it to her and we can all eat from there. And it's about releasing that attachment to the thing. It's like, yeah,
It works in the same theory works in relationships too.
yeah, yeah,
Because if you're attached to a certain relationship that you have, you're not allowing yourself to experience any other relationships. I do this too. Like people when they like come to me, I explain to them how I do readings. Like I do readings based on your energy, where you are, where you're past, where you are, and where you're headed, where you can like shift the energy. If you're looking to say this is going to happen down the road, or tell me what the person I'm going to meet looks like, you're cutting on a person, because I'm not going to do that, because A, I believe we all have free will, but B, the other thing is, if I tell you you're going to meet a tall, dark, handsome man, okay, my version of a tall, dark, handsome man might be different than your version. I'm looking at tall, my tall might be 5'8". Your tall might be like 6'3". So we all see things differently.
yeah,
But then also, if I give you this information, you're out searching for this one person, where
yeah,
you need to experience different relationships before you meet this person. And
yeah.
if you don't have these experiences and you meet these person, that that person and you might not align the way you're meant to be, because you stop yourself from having these experiences.
So good. Yeah,
Okay.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So um, letting go of attachments is so huge for our growth
yeah. So what tips do you have for them to release?
and our happiness and our love.
Yeah,
Really sitting in it and feeling the feelings, feeling what you're feeling with it, and then allowing yourself to be okay with letting it go. And it does it. And for me, it's sitting in that heart space, moving more into that heart space, and not in your head going, oh, well, if I let go of this $500, how am I going to pay this? If we're going back to the money thing. But
yeah,
if you sit into that heart space and you ask your heart that question, if I let go, can I, if I let go of that $500, and you can feel it. But until you really start sitting in your feelings and knowing your heart space, you go back to this head space, because that's where we're all used to living into. But really, like, having that conversation. There's a great lady, she's did a TV show, I can't think of her name, but she helps people like purge their homes. And it's so true what she does. Like, start with things that you're not fully attached with. So like, they're like, start in the kitchen. I'm like, well, that's not a good idea for me, because I'm attached to my kitchen stuff. Me and my orange KitchenAid, we have a relationship. um and I and but but like, start in somewhere that you're not attached to, and you like hold it and you look at it and you have this conversation with the object. So, and you feel this thing and you go, do I, oh, I think I don't need this anymore. I don't use garlic. I'm allergic to it. So even though that my grandma gave me this garlic press, I think it would be better served for somebody else. It served me at the time, and thank it for all that it did for me, and send it on its way to serve its purpose with somebody else that it's going to be. And I am talking about a physical thing, but it's the same thing.
it's the same thing. Yeah,
It's the same thing, because the emotions that you have attached to that physical thing is the same thing that you have attached to your emotions or your relationships with somebody,
yeah,
because everything's energy. So
yeah,
really also having that conversations.
yeah.
Yeah, I do it with plants and objects, but you can have, we all speak in a frequency,
Yeah.
and really just having that conversation and thanking it and saying goodbye. And you might cry.
Yeah.
You might cry, even if it's an object,
Yeah.
you know,
It's true.
but being grateful for it and knowing that you're sending it off with love to go serve something, and allowing something that's for your highest this moment comes from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so good stuff.
Yeah.
This is a topic we could probably go on a little bit longer about. And maybe we'll revisit it again in the future.
Just to remind people.
Yeah, yeah. So if people want to book a session with you or follow you, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at Cinderella Spa on Instagram, and then on my website it's www.cinderellaspa.com.
Wonderful. And you can find me at Intuitive Heart Healer on Instagram. On Facebook, I have a group called Intuitive Heart Healer. And my website is intuitivehearthealer.com. And you can book a session with me and or join the group. Right now we're doing a gratitude challenge, and I love it. I love what's going on.
Yeah.
I love how everybody's interacting too.
Yeah, so I wanted to add on the gratitude challenge too, because her gratitude challenges are, okay, you say your gratitudes, but you're also reading other people's gratitudes. And when you're reading other people's gratitudes, it comes back to you too. Because you're starting with I am grateful for. And then you read that I am grateful for. So it's great.
Yeah, and then I have people like myself, and there's other people that are commenting on the gratitudes and reading somebody's gratitudes and like saying, I am grateful you are seeing all the signs that the universe is providing. And so you're saying it back to that person so they see that, but you're also saying it as I'm, so you're saying it as you. And then like other people are adding to the comments too and doing that. So it's become this nice little interactive thing and really raising the vibration. And now I'm like just picking up the phone because I'm reading all these gratitudes, and like I'm like sending people random texts, and they're probably going, what the heck? But I'm like, you just can't help it because you just feel it.
Yeah.
You just have this overwhelming feeling that comes into your heart, and it's like, oh, I'm just so grateful. Or you just reach out to somebody and you just like think of somebody and you're like, I'm so happy you're in my life. You know, like something like that.
It's really something that you don't often hear, sadly. It's like, at least growing up, like we never heard I love you from our parents or something. But when we're able to say, Mom, I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you to help me with my children, to be here with me, to be alive. Like I'm so grateful. So it's nice.
Yeah. It is another form of love.
Yeah.
You know, there's different vibrations of love, and we'll save that for another talk, maybe next week. But you know, that's what gratitude is, just another vibration of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we will catch you guys on Tuesday. Actually, it'll just be Val because I will be at my dad's funeral. But yeah.
But I'm gonna have a special co-host with me, so you have to tune in to see who it is.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.